So this video is going to go over how to use Anthropic Claude on AWS Bedrock. So how do you get started with this? Well, I npm initted a project. I npm installed this guy, which is basically the AWS SDK v3 Bedrock library, and that's all you need. And so I got an index here, which is importing Bedrock in an empty main function, and then Bedrock itself is empty. So this is basically a brand new project. So what I'm going to do is copy a bunch of code. Oh, wrong one. Wrong bit of code. We will be using that snippet later on. And this is sort of like my super generic, um, function for prompting Bedrock. And this is the sort of thing that I would like bring into every project because it's generic enough. So you initialize the client just like you do for every other AWS SDK thing, and then we call it, and this is just parsing the response and so on. So none of this is really that important. You just yeah, it's just parsing responses. Now the interesting part is the parameters that we're putting in here. So first of all, you got to pick a model. There's lots of models on there. So we're switching between Claude Instant, which is really fast, and Claude 2.1, which is slower but really, really good. And then the body is the prompt. Obviously, you're going to be working with that a lot. Max tokens. This is important if you find that your responses are getting cut off. You just got to up the token response. Temperature. The closer to 1 it is, the more creative the response is. Closer to 0 it is, the more conservative the response is. The other thing I use quite a lot is stop sequence, and we'll see why in a second, but those are kind of like the four things I end up configuring quite a lot. Okay, so let's try to make this thing work. So let's do const result equals bedrock, and then we'll do who are you as our prompt, and then we'll console.log the response. So let's see what we get here. Oh, this is great. Okay, so we get an error. And you're going to be wondering, so it says prompt must start with human. So this is a Claude thing. This is not a Bedrock thing. This is specific to Claude. And it's a bit weird. Now let me explain this for a second. I'm just going to split this out into its own thing. For whatever reason, I don't know why, you need two enters, and then human. And then you need, after your question, who are you? You need two enters again, and then the assistant. Don't ask me why. I don't know why you need two enters, but that's just the way it is. So you'll find that like when you're making your templates, you just always have this, you always have that, and then whatever's in the middle is your question. Okay, so it answered us. So great. So we got it working. We are now calling an LLM on AWS. And this is great because this is like the same as any other AWS SDK call. So it's not very hard to imagine how you would do this in a Lambda function or whatever, right? Okay, how are we going to do something useful though? Like if we're just chatting with, like if we're just doing like chat type stuff in here, what's the point in doing that in a program? Like just fire up the console and just chat with it yourself, or just use ChatGPT. What's a good example of something you can do other than chatting? Well, I'll show you one. One great thing that you can do is make it return JSON. And if it can return JSON, then you can take that JSON and do something else with it in your program. You don't need to just return the text back to the user. You can actually do other things with it. You could do useful things if it's returning structured data. So let me take you through this example here. So you are an expert designer who knows color theory really well. So I'm telling it who it is, giving it a role, and then I say I need to create a theme involving 3 colors in hex. Here's an example if I want you to respond. This thing right here, examples, is really good for prompting because if you give it an example, you're giving it a sense of how it should respond. Is really, really good for getting it to do what you want it to do. The other thing about Claude specifically is that it's been trained on tags like this, XML tags, so they're really good for sectioning out parts of your prompt that are not just you talking. So in this example, or in this scenario, I'm saying example response, and then I'm giving it JSON. So primary, secondary accent. This is how I want this thing to respond. Can you provide, fix a spelling mistake there. Can you provide a color scheme for whatever it is? Idea. Assistant response. Let's do const idea equals cool summer breeze. Okay, let's check it out. Oh, must start with, oh, I forgot the human thing again. Okay, I gotta make sure there's like no extra, okay. Okay, great. So look, it gave us JSON, it gave us hex colors, and I'm guessing that this is helpful. I don't know. I'd have to check this out to validate it. Let's do something like volcano, because I think I can read hex well enough to figure out if it's red or not. So E71, that's red. D53, that's red. FB0, that's red as well. Great. Okay, so I'll get out of here, Q. I got Amazon Q here, which I don't find I use very often. So awesome. So this sort of thing here, bringing back JSON responses is really great for doing like more interesting stuff, like integrating LLMs into your apps. So it's way more than just like asking it a question and having it return it back to the front end. It's asking it a question, and then maybe we take that and store it in a database, or I don't know, we do more things with it. It's not necessarily responding directly to a user at this point. So one really important way we're able to do this is if we go into, oh, look at this. So there's JSON, and then there's this. So if I was to take this string and try to JSON parse it, it would fail because this is not valid. So this is where, this is not valid JSON right here. So this is where setting the stop sequence is really great. So I'm going to update this to be, I want you to stop when you hit this bit of text here. Okay, let's try it out now. Great. So as soon as it writes that, it's just going to stop. So then we don't even get that. So this, if I was to trim and parse this, JSON parse this, it would be valid JSON. The other thing that is interesting here is when you notice how I do assistant, but then I keep going, I write response. This is what is called putting words in Claude's mouth. You are starting the response for it. But if I was to get rid of this, it might give some sort of explanation before it returns that data, which, yeah, so like imagine I try to JSON to parse this. Of course it's going to fail because it's like all of this is invalid, all of this is invalid JSON, and it didn't even put the tags in. It's giving me some explanation. It's trying to have a conversation with me. So I want to stop it from having a conversation with me by just like just saying, you're going to start by saying this. And when it starts by saying that, it starts doing this, and then it will, of course, close the tag. And as soon as it closes the tag, we just stop the generation. So so putting words in Claude's mouth and setting the stop sequence is a great way to get valid JSON out of an LLM call. So anyways, I would say this is like the foundation of the foundational sort of bit of code and SDK call and skill and everything to then start making more sophisticated LLM apps in Node.js.